welcome to another episode of The Marriage Educators. We're certainly glad to be back with you. I'm Dr. Frank McKnight.
And I'm Janae McKnight. And we want to thank you guys all for all of the support that you've been giving us so far. We want you to make sure that you email us at kingdommarriages2018@gmail.com. And we also would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel called The Marriage Educators, or like us on Facebook at The Marriage Educators.
Great. Well, listen, last episode we talked about communication in marriage. So for this episode, we want to continue, but we want to kind of give you some tips on having a good communication within your marriage. Okay, and so we talked about a lot last time in regards to the different types of conversations you can have in your marriage. Mm-hmm. We also looked at what it means to know your mate, know your spouse, and so we really had a really good episode last time. But today I want to deal with some major tips that we can give our viewers when it comes to communication in marriage. Because one of the things, communication helps to nourish your marriage, it helps to flourish your marriage, and it helps to grow in your relationship with each other. And one of the things that we mentioned last time, and I want to stress this time, is that communication can certainly be purposeful, meaning that we're going to get something out of when we communicate and when we talk together as husband and wife. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the first tip that we want to share when it comes to communicating, depending on the nature of what we're talking about, because we talked about looking at conversations related to finance, to children, to dreams, to goals, to intimacy, or what have you. One of the things is that when it comes to having those serious conversations, we want to pick the right time of day, yes, to communicate certain things, because maybe when the husband comes home from work, that might not be the best time to communicate maybe a pressing issue, or what have you. Mm-hmm. So that would be, one tip, is that finding the right time to say or to share what you would need to share. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, for good communication, is to have a media-free, a cell phone-free time that you can communicate, because that can be a problem if the cell phone is involved. Let's take a look. Hey, honey, how you doing? How was your day today? Oh. So what you watching? How was things going?
Oh, good.
Oh, I see you on your phone. That's okay. So now we saw how it shouldn't happen in a conversation regarding the cell phone. But let's take a moment and let's look at how it should happen. Hey, honey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How was your day?
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was kind of rough today.
It was?
Yeah, I mean, it was like just all this work was piled up on us today because of the holiday, and it was just really stressful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're home now and you can just kind of relax and sit back.
I'm looking forward to that.
So, after you saw that example, notice that you should have seen that there was no television or no cell phone intervening or disrupting the conversation in the second case. And that's really how we should try our best to communicate with our mates.
Mm-hmm. Another tip that we would like to share with you is when it comes to communicating, is oftentimes you may need to have what we call a structured conversation, or a purposeful one, meaning that we talk about a particular topic or particular issue, whether it's related to the children, or whether it's related to summer vacation, or where we're going, or a career move, So sometimes it's good to set aside time just to have a structured conversation with your mate, or you could just pick random topics, just to kind of keep that conversation, going. Or if it's time that you really need to deal with a particular issue, whether it's in the marriage, related to the marriage, or with the children, or what have you. So structured conversation, I think, is a good tip for couples, to set aside time to let's meet at 7, or let's talk at 7 to discuss this or that.
Right. And it's almost like a marriage meeting where
Yeah.
you can actually set an agenda and you like have those things that you want to make sure that you cover in that marriage, because it may be some things that maybe you've been kind of putting off, like, you know, oh, we'll talk about it. And so, you know, you just write it down in an agenda and make sure it's covered in that marriage meeting.
Right, right. And, you know, because we live, some of us live busy lives. You know, I know couples that have, you know, awkward schedules, or their lives are so full until you got to purposely say, okay, let's sit down this day and meet and talk about that. So I like the idea of a marriage meeting. And what's another tip?
Another tip is one of my favorites, is to do a getaway conversation where basically what you're going to do is you're going to get away. You're going to go somewhere, have a nice conversation, whether it's go for a walk, whether you are going for a walk, which is kind of one of the things we like to do now. And also, it could also be where you either have a date night, you go out somewhere, any type of deal where you go get away somewhere and you can actually have that conversation with your mate. That's also a very important tip. And then you may even do a vacation getaway. Maybe you may go big and go somewhere, get away, and just have a time of just you and your mate having conversation. Because sometimes it's hard to do that when you have children and a lot of other distractions around.
Right. And then another tip that I like to add is avoid double messaging. And that just simply means is that if you have a conversation and you're speaking one way, but your body language is saying something else, or you're talking positive, but your tone might come across negative. And so, you know, so you don't want to have a double message conversation, meaning that everything really should, you know, line up. So I think that's a good, you know, tip as well.
Yes. Another tip is to deal with it now, as opposed to waiting until things build up. You should deal with it now, immediately. Now, again, sometimes you may need to wait a few minutes, but do give a time. So, for example, if let's say that you have something and it's been on your mind all day, wives, and you wait until your husband comes home and you're ready to talk about it, but you know that is his time, that he needs to unwind and calm down. You want to give him that time, and then set a time with him for what time you like to meet. Oh, honey, I need to discuss something with you at 7 o'clock after dinner. Is that okay? That way you have a set time. You're going to talk about it that day so that it doesn't carry over into the night, into the next day. So that's another thing. You want to make sure you talk now.
Right, because there can be so many different pressing issues, you know, regarding, I know, you know, certain things may have a deadline that you really got to deal with. And so that's definitely a key. Also, a good conversation or a good tip to have is, you know, learning about, if your spouse may be from another race or different culture, having what we call CrossCultural Communication, learning about that person's, you know, background, their family background, their family history, or just learning about that, you know, that culture. And so that's, you know, certainly a topic of conversation, but it's also a tip that can help strengthen let's say maybe an interracial or interethnic, you know, marriage.
Another tip for having a conversation is always show respect. Always respect one another in the conversation. One rule of thumb is don't say anything to your mate that you wouldn't want them to say to you. So remember, it's never a one-sided thing. It's always a two-sided thing. You want to make sure that you use the right tone, that you make sure that you are saying things in love. The Word of God tells us to speak the truth in love. And I think a lot of times people just go with, oh no, the word say speak the truth, I'm gonna speak the truth, and you just say whatever comes off the top of your mind any kind of way, and that's not always the best way, because sometimes you can incite an argument that's not necessary. Okay.
And then also you want to accept the issues that can be viewed uniquely, which means that there may be a conversation where you may both not agree on. However, one of the things is you want to respect the way that your spouse views that particular issue, and that may add some insight to that, you know,
that's good.
because maybe your spouse may know a little something about an issue or a topic that you may have, less information on. So look at their perspective, look at
Yeah.
what they're dealing with and what they're going through.
And appreciate
Yes,
perspectives.
yes,
Appreciate your
that's
mate's
true.
perspective. It's not, sometimes the issue is not a right or wrong. And a lot of times couples get caught up in that I'm right, you're wrong. But no, it's really about perspective. You may have two totally different perspectives on an issue, but again, they're both valid perspectives. So respect one another in that aspect.
Okay. And then what's the next one?
Focus on the current issue.
Excellent tip. Excellent tip.
Yes.
Which means that, don't get clouded with a lot of other things. If it's a particular issue that you all have to deal with or a particular disagreement that you need to get, settled, deal with just that.
Yeah.
Don't deal with 5 other different issues all at once or overcrowd or overcloud, a particular, issue.
Yes, that's true, because you don't want to keep stacking on negative or bad conversations at the same time. It's really not, it's not good, because it just fuels the fire, so to speak. And so you don't want to do that in your conversation.
Yes, yes. And then the next one is fight fair, in a marriage, you are going to have disagreements, and sometimes it may take a while to kind of see eye to eye on things. But you want to make sure that the level of respect is there and that we should resist fault finding in certain things. So let's take a look at this.
Oh my goodness. I always got to clean up behind you. Man, you don't never clean your mess up. Oh. Did you take out the trash? Oh. Did you take, you don't never take the garbage out either.
Oh, it ain't that serious.
Yes, it is. Did you notice how frustrating both of the people in this example seem to be? Those different ways that they spoke with one another. So, yeah, let's look at a better way. Honey, can you make sure that you clean up after yourself?
Oh, okay.
Okay,
All right, I
and
sure will.
don't forget to take out the trash, okay?
Oh, yeah, I think the trash man's coming tomorrow. So, yeah, let me get right on that.
Okay,
Right.
alrighty, thank you.
Okay, so now that we looked at the correct way, always remember those key words. Don't always say you always or you never. So let's kind of focus in on the positive as disagreements do occur, and the outcome can certainly be better. Okay.
Yes.
Another tip is to be clear when we communicate. We have to be clear. We have to be, direct, mean what we say, and clear in the sense that you understand, what one another, is certainly saying.
Yes. Another tip is to be honest about your feelings.
Yes.
I think this is a very difficult one sometimes also for couples because sometimes people just want everything to be a bed of roses. And that's not reality. Sometimes there are some things that people need to get off their chest and they need to share with their mate. And it may not be that bed of roses. It may be that thorn. And so sometimes you have to just be open for that conversation, not necessarily dwell there, but do speak your truth. Be honest about it. Share how you feel. Use I feel statements like I feel slighted when you do that. I feel that you're talking to me in a condescending tone when you say that in that way. Speak your truth and say exactly how you feel. And the other mate should not be on the defense. Accept how they feel because that's their truth. That's their honest. They're being honest with you. And what you don't want is your mate to stop being honest with you and start telling you what they think you're just going to make you feel good and fill your head. But at the same time, they're hurting on the inside, but they can't communicate with you. So you want to make sure that you speak the truth in love and be honest about your feelings.
Right. And not only being honest about your feelings, but another tip is to be honest with being sensitive. You know, how you talk to that person. Be sensitive about their feelings because words can hurt.
Yes,
You know,
that's true.
I know we say sticks and stones may break my bones, but no, words or names never hurt me. But words do hurt.
Yes.
And so you really want to be sensitive in talking to your mate. Not only being honest, but also being sensitive is very key in
Yes.
communicating.
Yes, and avoid making or accepting excuses too quickly. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are not making excuses. You know, sometimes you may say, hey, you know, I've noticed that I've asked you like 5 times not, you know, to take the garbage out. I've asked you 5 times to take the garbage out. And so when that happens, you know, the thing is that, you know, don't be like, oh, well, you know, you didn't remind me, or, oh, you know, I was doing so. Just go ahead and take it out at that point. If it's been, you know, again, this is the truth. So, you know, just accept it. Don't make excuses. Just accept it and then go ahead and fix it.
Right.
That's all you have to do.
And then recognize, you know, yourself. Oh, I forgot. Okay, let me do it now.
Yep.
You know, just oh, okay. Well, I didn't feel like doing it, but I'll go ahead and get it done. So being open and honest with your feelings as well. So that's a great tip.
It also said accepting excuses too quickly. I
Yeah,
think sometimes on the flip side of that, sometimes people they're so used to their mate making excuses and they just accept it because they really don't want to confront their mate about it.
Okay.
They're non-confrontational people, so they don't want to confront them about it. So they just keep accepting. Oh, okay. But eventually, you're really getting frustrated. That other mate is getting frustrated because they keep accepting the excuses. But after so long, you may have to have that conversation. Okay, enough is enough.
Right.
We need to stop. I need you to stop making the excuses, and I need this to change or this to happen. So, you know, those are also sometimes hard conversations, but they need to be had.
Right.
Yeah.
And another very important tip is, which we talked about last time, was listening. You know, being an active listener, engaging in your mate's conversation, asking questions, talking with them about what they're, you know, discussing. So listening, we said, is key. And then also, if it's something that you don't understand, ask for clarity. If you said something I'm not clear about, okay, well, what did you mean by that?
Right.
Or could you clarify that? Or if it's something you don't understand, sometimes we'll hold things in and try to interpret it ourselves when our spouse might not have meant it the way that it may have came out or how they said it. So you can certainly ask for clarity, you know, for the clarity's sake. So that's definitely, you know, very, very key.
Absolutely. And be conscious of how you are speaking. So what's very important is your tone. Very important how you talk, whether you're talking loudly, whether you're talking, you know, too soft. You want to make sure that you are communicating to that person in a very clear manner. You're saying exactly what you want to be said and not hiding. Don't talk muffled. You know, don't use an attitudinal or wrong tone. But you know what? Let's take a look at this.
What is this? You paid $125 at JCPenney's for a dress? And you open a new credit card too? Baby, we're trying to get out of debt. How are we going to get out of debt? And you still insist on buying clothes and opening up credit. I don't understand. Can you explain that to me?
I was going to tell you later.
Just doesn't make any sense. How are we going to get out of debt and you doing this?
Who said we was trying to get out of debt?
Well, I am, evidently.
Did you tell me? So notice how tone can really, so-called, set the tone for that conversation. It can be misinterpreted sometimes, but we want you to take a look and see how it might possibly be done the right way.
What? You bought a dress for $125? What, at JCPenney's? And you opened up a credit card? This doesn't make any sense.
Honey, calm down. I bought the dress because we have an event coming up, but the card was a 0% interest, so I have every intention of paying off the total balance. You know, remember we got a lump sum coming in, so I'll take care of that. Okay. And it's gonna be okay. I'm working with you. Okay. We work together on getting rid of debt. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for getting upset with you. I just, saw that, but Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
it makes sense.
I'm with you.
All right.
I'm working with
All right. Thanks, babe.
you. Okay.
So we see how a soft answer can turn away wrath. Okay, the Bible talks about that in the book of Proverbs, because a soft answer and how we communicate and talk in a even tone without all of the emotions and everything, how it can diffuse and can really settle everything. So that's something that we can certainly learn from that particular video. Another good tip I would say regarding communication is what? Positive
Positive
statements,
statements. Yeah.
as well as humor. You know, everything doesn't have to be so serious. You can have fun conversations, laughable conversations. You know,
Yeah.
what I can get out of this conversation, or what have you. So humor in a marriage is certainly good, and then being positive or saying, you know, positive things toward each other, you know, communicating the positive. Sometimes when couples do communicate, sometimes it just centers around the negative, the
Yeah.
problems, the issues, you know.
Yeah.
And even though those things may come, yet and still there's some fun things and some exciting things that you as a couple can talk about or even reminisce about, you know.
Yeah.
Stories of times when we've laughed until we cried ourselves silly, you know, or times wherein we think about maybe the Lord has blessed us with something or have done something. So, you know, your conversations can certainly be that of a positive nature.
Yes.
So I hope these tips have certainly helped you. And these are tips that you can certainly use in your marriage because, listen, we want your marriage communication to be effective, to be powerful, and we know that it can certainly strengthen your marriage.
Yes, and if any of these tips that we've shared today, if they bless you or they are help to you in your marriage,
Yes.
please share them with other couples, as well as share your comments with us in the comments section on our
Yes.
YouTube page, The Marriage Educators, or on our Facebook page, The Marriage Educators, and like us on
Yes.
Facebook as well. Make sure also that you email us at kingdommarriages2018@gmail.com. And we are the Marriage Educators, and we are educating and elevating marriages and
And
relationships.
relationships.